Knife fans in the Nutnfancy project, perhaps enthusiasts of the handsome and well-made fixed blade fighting knife, I think you'll dig this one. On the table tonight are two examples of what I believe to be the best made, highest quality, sharpest, most functional, classically styled semi-production Bowie knife in the world. Welcome to the Nutnfancy review of the gorgeous and yet superbly functional Bark River Bowie knife issued in 2009, limited edition. It is a special blade, and I hope this review does it justice. Let me first start by saying, keep in mind those last 2 points I made in the intro. If I'm going to designate this as one of the best Bowie knives in the world, which I truly believe it is, keep in mind the last 2 points: semi-production, classically styled. If you remove those two, then the sky's the limit. If you just remove semi-production and go with a custom Bowie knife, dude, there are some great makers out there. Gorgeous knives, exceptional quality levels, beautiful handles, steels, and yes, they're going to cost you a lot of money. Often upwards of $1,000, maybe $2,000, maybe $3,000. It just depends on the maker, the rarity of the blade, the rarity of the handle materials, fit, finish, all the things that make the knife special. In this Nutnfancy tabletop review, though, of the Bark River Bowie knife, I'm going to show you how you get all of those things for a knife around $200. And that represents exceptional value. It really does. Here in a sec, I'll hit all the details as I attempt to do the knife justice. But hearkening back to a Nutnfancy tradition, going a few years back, I'm going to start us off with a little bit of story time, setting the stage for a good Bowie knife review. Keep in mind, in the 1800s, the Bowie knife was a notorious weapon. Lots of people carried them. Several were used in hand-to-hand combat, very graphically, I might add. It's part of the knife's history. To do the review justice, I have to talk about this history, and I think it's fascinating, and it is one of the reasons it holds such an attraction for us as collectors, right? That it does have such a story. I think the Bark River Bowie knife is the epitome of that era in our history. It is a gorgeous knife. It's classically styled, and to me it represents that era, and yet with modern day materials. Getting ahead of myself. I'm going to start us off with story time. I'm going to go back to 1838. Yep, a reporter wrote this letter to a newspaper called the Baltimore Commercial Transcript. It's probably out of business now. And he was describing the notorious Bowie knife. His words are somewhat flamboyant, and yet I think they hold a large measure of accuracy. Here we go. I quote, "Perhaps there is not one among your readers who has not seen a Bowie knife." By the way, I'm going to say Bowie, not Bowie, this review. I alternate back and forth. "There is certainly not one who did not feel a thrill of horror pass through his frame when for the first time he looked upon that keen and well-polished weapon. The Roman short sword conquered the world. The Turkish scimitar threatened the liberties of Europe and the destruction of Christianity. The Bowie knife combines the superior qualities of both its predecessors. The downward blow and home thrust, lopping a limb or piercing the stoutest armor, and the light saber stroke having, that's Halving, a silken cushion, and this is graphic, but here we go, or severing a head with ease and rapidity which leaves the hapless loser half unconscious from its loss." Whoa, this guy can write. "Among the many means invented for man's destruction, the Bowie knife is the most effective in execution, the most fearful to the sight and the imagination. The blade measures 12 inches in length, fashioned of excellent materials." He's describing some particular knife, I take it. "Observe its keen edge, keen, smooth, and so perfect that a barber might use it in his trade. Its point is curved and hollow at the back, cutting both ways like a two-edged sword. It is 2 inches broad at the heel and of proportional thickness. Its weight alone is sufficient to give effect to a descending blow, and a child, I love this part, thus armed might well intimidate a man of strength and courage." Unquote. End of story time. How's that for setting the stage for the Bowie knife in the 1800s in U.S. history? And by the way, there were all sorts of Bowie knives back then. This is not the only style. I'm talking a clipped style of blade. There were double-edged versions. There were Arkansas toothpicks. But to me, when I talk of a Bowie knife, a Bowie pattern blade, this is exactly what I've discussed in many reviews since 2008, and it is probably my favorite overall blade shape for its functionality. And it has a very storied past. It is an effective fighting blade, which I will discuss in backwards fashion in philosophy of use. And when I say backwards fashion, I mean I'm not going to attack POU right off. The reason I'm not is because I want to set the stage for a primary POU, not a primary, a certain POU that I'll get back to. Let's jump ahead to quality. You won't find better at the price. It is a semi-custom, a semi-production blade, and I will tell you what, Bark River Knives in Escanaba, Michigan got this one right, boys. It is gorgeous. The fit and finish is meticulous and flawless in every detail. Now, can you surpass it with a custom Bowie knife? Probably, but would you want to do that for $2,000? I don't know. You know, again, value is in the eye of the beholder. If we talk about second kind of cool, then that's money well spent for a lot of guys. I don't fault them for it at all. But for me, the money you're paying, jumping down to price, amazing quality levels. I'm going to talk about the steel separately, but look at the lines on the handle. Now, is it perfect as in there's like no raised lines on the liners at all? On the stacking right here? No, I wouldn't say that. You can feel a slight raising right there, but it is so minor as to be completely discarded. The handle materials, the fitting of the guard, the blade itself, just absolutely gorgeous. Top-notch quality. First off, let me introduce these, or second off, whatever. This one is the Bark River Bowie knife, limited edition, circa 2009. So sorry it's taken me so long to score some of these and do a review. Better late than never. This is Desert Ironwood. Cost on this sucker is $200 if you can find one. Probably will go up if you take care of the knife. Who says production knives will not gain in value? I think these definitely will. Isn't that a gorgeous handle material? Look at that. It's beautiful. In the scabbard, sheath if you will. This one is natural Canvas Micarta, and that is a Sabre handle, Sabre style of handle that Bark River does. So is that one right there, the Desert Ironwood. Oh, and I have another one. It's not just two, it's three. Beautiful Bark River Bowie knives. This is, what is it? Actually, I can't speak. Green Micarta. There's a Coffin bladed handle for you. Nice. Quality is a 10 out of 10. Enough said. You'll see it as we talk about the points. Oh, on we go to weight, balance, and feel. If we're talking about a fighting knife, this is critical, isn't it? We want the balance to be about mid-knife, for me at least. Again, your mileage may vary. If you hold it like so, it is perfection. If you want to go behind the excellent guard, it's still excellent. It is fast in hand. Okay, it maneuvers quickly for a blade of its size, 8.5 inches. The balance is perfection in my estimation. Again, I am not a knife fighting expert, probably never will be. I know the basics and can employ the basics, and that's how I see it. The weight, first off, on the natural canvas, and that's this one right here, and the ironwood version, the knife itself is 13.2 ounces. In the excellent sheath, I'll talk about that separately, 18.4 ounces. That's reasonable carry weight. And no, weight on this knife is not everything. In fact, almost not even coming into the equation. Okay, you know what I mean? The Green Micarta handle, Coffin version, and because it has more material in the handle, is going to be heavier. 14.4 ounces total carry weight in the sheath, 20.4 ounces. The reason I say that weight is not particularly, I can't speak, especially, let me say that, important in this knife is because personally for me, this is not a knife I would probably ever carry. Okay, there is an asterisk next to that. I will explain when I go back to POU. So it's not super critical. I think for what they are, they're light in hand and light for what they are. By the way, the blade stock is 0.19 inches in thickness, tapering down to the tip, which we might as well talk about now. Blade design is what you see. The beautiful Bowie shape. Oh, why do I love it so much? You guys who have been following my knife reviews for so many years now know that I talk about this. One is that it just excels in whatever role you want to put it in. Do you want it to be a battle blade? Well, it's ready for the calling. It has great penetrating power. I think it's as good as a dagger, in fact. Look at the tip on the Bark River Bowie knife, dudes. Very sharp. And that's exactly what I want for my Bowie knife, right? To come to that level of sharpness and delicacy. This is not a survival knife. It's what I talked about. It's a large fighting knife. That's what it's designed to be. However, if you wanted to press it into service as a, I don't know, a camp knife, absolutely. It's got good belly right here. It's got a lot of plain edge cutting ability. Superb. As a survival knife, would it work? I'm kind of jumping into philosophy of use. I got to hold off on that. Quick, yes, it would. Back to the blade, though. This is A2 steel. And I think Bark River Knives also made them in 13C27 by Sandvik. Also an excellent steel. And I've come to trust their execution of whatever steel they're using. Okay, we're talking about quality, and Mike Stewart and company there at Bark River know a thing or two about quality. Their version of A2 tool steel is double quenched, triple tempered, and cryo-treated for maximum grain refinement. Translated, that means this thing takes a wicked edge. And from the box, it is scary sharp. Check this. I mean, we could do micro slivers if I had the time. Very sharp. Probably the sharpest fixed blade knife I have ever seen in my life from the box. These Bark River Bowie knives. I don't know a ton about A2 tool steel, at least from the standpoint of hard outdoor use. The easy answer for that is because it's so rare in survival knives. It's usually found in more expensive fixed blade knives, kind of like this Bark River version. Therefore, not a lot of users, including myself, have a lot of experience with it. However, my research tells me that the Bark River version is outstanding. Again, all the things they do to the steel to make it very fine-grained is believable to me. It is a tough knife within the limits of A2 limitations. It's not totally rust resistant. You will have to take care of it. It is a tool steel after all. If you expose it to moisture and don't wipe it off, you are probably going to get a fair amount of rust on it. Tougher than D2 is what my research tells me. Again, I haven't tried that. With great toughness, probably difficult to sharpen. And speaking of sharpening, this is a convex ground knife, the Bark River Bowie. Whoops, slipped, Bowie knife. Some guys will love that, some guys will hate it. I've already demonstrated the sharpness. It is truly amazing. I generally like a conventional grind on my knife. A lot of proponents for the convex grinding say that it's more durable and it's actually easier to sharpen. I can sharpen a convex edge. I've done it before. You can use varying grits of sandpaper, emery cloth with a rolling motion like that. You're going with the grain, not against. Being careful to kind of replicate that factory edge. I honestly think a conventional edge knife is easier to sharpen. The good news is A2, at least this version of Bark River, is probably going to hold an edge extremely long. No, I did not go out and hard use any of these blades. Sorry, I just can't do it. you know, and I just won't. It's not something I want to do. I just can't bring myself to do it. So that's about all I can tell you. In the philosophies of use I'll talk about, I will tell you the steel will be exceptional. Again, I talked about the thickness, 0.19 inches, unsharpened swedge on the top side. Yes, I would love to get that sharpened. Or I will do it myself. And that would really complete what I think is a near perfect fighting blade. Great job on the blade design. I really couldn't change anything about it. Oh, one other thing, being 8.5 inches long, that's a lot of reach. And I think that's an important factor as long as you have balance and speed in the fighting knife. And another important factor of a fighting blade. It's just outstanding. Between the two steels, which one would you prefer, Nutnfancy? I'm talking about the A2 and the also, I hope I said it right, 12C27 Sandvik is what they use. Again, I trust the execution by Bark River. I think both would be great. You might get some more rust resistance out of the 12C27 version. I have used that steel and it does hold an exceptional edge, especially if it's heat treated properly. I would probably, if I had a choice, lean towards A2 for traditional reasons. Okay, that's just me, my mileage. All right, handle and guard. I already showed you the materials. First version is the Coffin handle. How does that feel in hand? Excellent. Great traction, and look at the real estate that you have. This is not a short handle, okay, and that is a disadvantage on a lot of fighting knives I've seen, is they cut the handle in abbreviated fashion to where I'm crowded, that I can't get enough purchase, whether I go forward conventional, reverse grip. I like to have options, and also I like the non-lethal impact of a protruding handle that you can use. Use that back in the 1800s too. The handle is exceptional. And some guys will say, well, that is a slick surface, that polished green micarta. Just looking at this one now. I would disagree. I have found in my my very wet survival knife usage that micarta, Canvas Micarta, is a very high traction material when wet. I'm talking about with water. With other materials, I don't know. You know, oil, heaven forbid, blood, don't know. Probably slick, but I think, you know, with moisture, it's a pretty good handle. And it provides, I won't say outstanding, but adequate traction. Don't know much about ironwood. I think it's mostly decorative. Sure is beautiful. This is a Sabre handle. I love this one too. If I were to pick between the Coffin handled version and the Sabre handled version, if I were to go into combat, we'll pretend, I would probably go with the Sabre handled. Okay, it does have kind of more squared shoulders on it compared to the Coffin handled one. And the flared end of the Coffin handle actually might provide more traction. In other words, when the knife, if for whatever reason it was going to be attempted to pull out of your hand. Can't speak very well, but you know what I mean. Lanyard hole in both of them. And yes, if you are to hard use any knife of this size, lanyard up, boys. Man, the ironwood is just gorgeous. Look at that. How beautiful that is. So is the micarta. Polished, and this is the quality levels I'm talking about. You know, I don't think these are completely full tang knives, by the way, in case you're wondering. Sorry. Oh, here's one. The natural canvas one. Sabre handle. Beautiful. You know, the red spacers, do I like those? They're good. I prefer something a little bit more subdued. Maybe black, gray to go in line with these, but I think all the Bark River 2009 Bowie knives had this. The alternating red and black spacers on the handle. Okay, let's talk about that guard. Awesome. Awesome. Double Quillian guard, and that is one I would expect to see on a functional fighting knife. I don't want my hand to go forward and slip over the blade, which happened a lot in the 1800s, by the way. That's why they improved the guards. Guys cut their fingers up, their tendons up, as they were stabbing whatever. Maybe it was a buffalo. Yeah, that's a functional guard. Look how big that is. Solid brass guard. Double Quillian. Love it. Would I use it to trap a blade? Come on. I've talked about that in other vids. That's pure fantasy in my estimation. If you want to, you can come forward of the guard and get what I perceive to be an even better and faster balance point, albeit you sacrifice the protective nature of that guard. But I love that deep choil right there. I'm talking forward of the guard if you wanted it. Okay, excellent guard. It's just superb. Sheath. Just gets better, dudes. Made by Sharpshooter Sheath Systems. And this is how you do a leather sheath. Look at the rolled and waxed edges. The super high quality saddle style stitching. The quality of the leather. The coloration of the leather. I think it's as good a sheath as I've ever seen. It's not a tactical sheath, but this isn't a tactical knife. This is a classic Bowie knife. Okay, and it fits the blade to perfection. Okay, would I like to see a Kydex sheath? Absolutely not. Not on this knife. This is a classic Bowie knife, like I said. I mean, I've talked about Kydex versions before, and I've talked a lot about other Bowie knives in the project, but they're different in nature, aren't they? They're functional blades. They're working blades. Kind of like the Cold Steel Trailmaster, right? Riding in a custom-made Kydex sheath. Lots of use in the Nutnfancy project. Love this knife, but it's a worker. Okay? Could it be a fighting knife? Absolutely. Reference my review many years back. You can check it out. And let's hold it up against a beautiful and elegant Bark River Bowie knife. It's kind of interesting to see the differences. Worker. This could be a worker too, but elegant and refined. Okay, just an interesting comparison and contrast. Love the sheath on this. It's perfect for what the knife is. Back to philosophy of use. First, philosophy of use, now that I've established that other stuff, is going to be, number one, this might shock you, but fighting knife. What? You're crazy. No, seriously. I think, and I said this in the intro, it is a functional blade if it were to be pressed in that philosophy of use. First up, like I explained, a lot of real estate on the handle. Non-lethal impacts, functional protective guard, plenty of reach, 8.5 inches, very sharp, capable of slash cuts, penetrating cuts. Excellent balance, lightweight, fast in hand. That is a superb fighting knife. Will anybody ever use it as such? I hope not, but I have to be honest to the review. The knife is capable of it, and I think it's strong enough. So guys who say, hey, that's not, full tang, I don't think it matters in that philosophy of use. We're not batoning through a log with this knife, which brings us to the philosophy of use of survival knife. I did say it could function. Absolutely it could. It could baton and do everything you'd want it to, but why? I mean, when you got users like this bouncing around for, about half the cost, maybe less, go use those. Here's another Bowie knife example, the excellent SP43. Yeah, by Ontario. Now that's another user knife. Go use this knife. Don't use that knife. All right. Next philosophy of use, this is probably the most popular one, will be a collectible. When you get this level of quality, and it ties into what I feel is the history of the Bowie knife and represents it so eloquently, this is a collectible, and this is how the knife would function for me. I would never hard use the knife. I would collect it and take care of it and hand it down to my children. And it represents a fighting tool of the Old West that could easily come back to life in present day and do the same defensive capabilities. You know what I'm saying? Those are the philosophies of use as I see them. Such a beautiful knife, and yet it is so extremely functional. Competitive offerings. How many are there? I don't see a lot. I mean, you guys have been watching me on the camera for years now. I've done all kinds of knife reviews. I do not see a lot of knives like this. I'm talking semi-production, classically styled, very high quality Bowie knives. I just don't. The Bagwell Bowies are gone by Ontario, but they weren't like this. I know, I've seen those knives. They weren't anywhere like this. There's not too many choices for the money you're going to pay. And I think I said the Desert Ironwood, I can't speak, Ironwood, $200. Natural canvas was about $150. Wow, that's a steal. If you could find that. And then the Green Micarta canvas, about 170. And by the way, these were not the only handle materials of the Bark River Bowie knives. They came in stag, burl, rosewood, bamboo, curly maple. Each one has its own distinct characteristics. Gorgeous. There's just not a lot out there for this style of knife. If you want to go more modern, if price is not an object, there's a lot more options. Around this, I'll say they're getting it right, and at least for now, the very limited edition 2009 Bark River Bowie knife owns the game. The sad news is they are going to be harder and harder to find. It is summer 2011, sorry for the delay, as I'm posting this knife review, and good luck finding them. In the upper left is where I recommend to go get them, if they have them. Okay, the best prices I found, there's other places too, but they have some, and definitely worth the money. Remember, value, as I've said for years, is not all about the money you paid. It's about first type of cool, capability and roll. I think I've discussed that. And also second kind of cool, the specialness, the enjoyment factor it gives you. I will tell you this is a knife I just love to fondle and look at. Yep, who wouldn't? It's just gorgeous. It feels good in hand. It's about one of the coolest fixed blade knives, classically styled versions that I've ever seen. Huge, two kinds of cool. I mean, totally maxed out. Price is excellent. What else is there to say about the awesome and sadly now gone Bark River Bowie knife? Well, I'll tell you this, I'm glad it's limited in number. I'm glad they discontinue it. Just like they do a lot of their knives, you may see some more Bark River knife reviews here on the Nutnfancy table, by the way. I think it's cool. It makes it more special. Anytime you limit something, it becomes more special. A fighting tool in the 1800s with deadly effectiveness. Absolutely. The embodiment is the Bark River Bowie knife in my estimation. There's some other good ones out there. I may cover them as well. But man, you talk about the quality, the excellent steel, the handle, the effective guard, the wicked convex edge, the beautiful sharpshooter sheath, hitting on all cylinders. That is the Bark River Bowie knife Nutnfancy review. Thanks, guys. See ya.